Entire civilizations have disappeared without a trace. We are drawn to stories of lost cities because they are the ultimate historical mystery, challenging everything we think we know about where people built their greatest works. This journey uncovers 15 lost cities found in places we never thought to look, from deep jungles to frozen coasts. By the end, you will see the map of human history redrawn, revealing connections to our shared past that were hidden in plain sight. What does a city swallowed by sand say about our own future? How can a metropolis thrive for centuries, only to vanish from memory completely? The answers lie in the most unexpected corners of the world. What do you believe is still waiting to be found? That allure is more than simple curiosity. It is a profound echo of our own impermanence. For centuries, the legends of Atlantis sinking beneath the waves or El Dorado gleaming in a hidden jungle have driven explorers into the unknown. These stories are not just fanciful tales, they represent a deep-seated human desire to find proof that greatness can be forgotten, and that forgotten greatness can be found again. They blend fact with fiction in our collective imagination, creating a map where X marks not just a spot, but a possibility. This enduring quest has shaped our understanding of history itself. Yet the reality of discovery is often stranger than the myth. Modern lost cities are not typically found by following ancient treasure maps. They are uncovered in the most unexpected locales, places our conventional historical narratives told us were empty. A bustling metropolis is revealed under a farmer's field. A ceremonial complex emerges from what was thought to be an impenetrable rainforest. A trading hub is found on a coastline deemed too harsh for sustained life. Each of these discoveries defies the old maps. They force us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about environmental limits, cultural exchange, and the pathways of human migration. Think of it as the ultimate global treasure hunt, but the treasure is knowledge. Every city found is a crucial piece of a larger, interconnected puzzle about who we are. It is a clue to how societies adapt to changing climates, how they build networks across vast distances, and sometimes how they face challenges that lead to their dispersion or transformation. This puzzle shows us that history is not a straight line from primitive to advanced, but a complex web of rises, falls, and resurgences. As we begin this countdown of 15 lost cities found in places we never thought to look, hold onto that sense of wonder. Remember that the most surprising chapters of our shared story are often waiting just beyond the edge of the known path, hidden in plain sight. Deep within the dense, mist-shrouded rainforests of eastern Honduras, a legend persisted for over 500 years. Indigenous peoples spoke of a place they called the White City, a settlement of great spiritual power and material wealth, hidden away from the outside world. Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century heard these stories and became obsessed, launching expedition after expedition into the treacherous region known as the Mosquitia. They dreamed of finding another Tenochtitlan, another empire ripe for conquest, but the jungle always won. It swallowed paths, confused compasses, and claimed lives, guarding its secret so well that the White City faded into the realm of pure myth, a tantalizing story for adventurers and treasure hunters. For centuries, it seemed this city would remain forever lost, a ghost in the green. Then, a technology designed for mapping the surface of other planets turned its gaze downward onto Earth. Using a system called LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging, researchers mounted laser scanners on aircraft. These lasers pierced the thickest jungle canopy like a blade of light, digitally stripping away millions of leaves and branches to map the ground beneath. What they revealed was not a single white city, but the truth behind the legend. The scans showed an extensive, untouched landscape of human engineering. There were plazas, earthen pyramids, irrigation canals, and reservoirs, all arranged with clear intention. This was not a small village, but a complex society that had flourished and then been quietly reclaimed by the forest for over half a millennium. The discovery was monumental, not for gold, but for knowledge. It proved that sophisticated societies arose independently in the heart of Central American jungles, separate from the well-documented Maya to the northwest. This challenges a persistent assumption that such dense rainforests were only ever pristine wilderness, bypassed by history. Instead, they were home. They were centers of culture, agriculture, and community that we are only now beginning to comprehend. So we must ask if this one legendary city was real, hiding in plain sight for centuries. How many other civilizations are still concealed beneath similar veils of vegetation, their stories waiting for the right light to reveal them? The jungle's green veil is not the only guardian of lost history. Far from the humid air of Honduras lies its absolute opposite, a landscape so severe it was named the Empty Quarter. The Rub al-Khali Desert in Arabia is a vast ocean of sand, a place where the sun bleaches the sky and the dunes shift with a slow, relentless patience. Here, for millennia, another legend whispered on the dry wind, the story of Ubar. In ancient texts and Bedouin oral traditions, it was known as Aram of the Pillars, a magnificent city of the Ad people, famed as the crossroads of the frankincense trade. This aromatic resin, more valuable than gold in the ancient world, was carried on camel caravans from southern Arabia to the temples and palaces of Rome, Persia, and Egypt. Ubar was said to be the queen of that trade, unimaginably wealthy. Yet the stories also carried a warning, a tale of a people who lost their way and a city that was punished, swallowed whole by the desert sands as if it had never been. It became the ultimate desert mirage, a phantom of greed and divine retribution that many scholars dismissed as pure folklore, a moral lesson rather than a real place. How could a major city exist in such an unforgiving void? The answer, once again, came from looking down from above, but this time not with lasers that strip away foliage, but with eyes that see through sand. In the 1980s, researchers studying satellite images from NASA missions noticed something extraordinary. Amid the trackless dunes, faint, dark lines were visible like ancient scars on the land. These were not natural features. They were the fossilized tracks of countless camel caravans, paths worn deep into the earth over centuries of travel. Using this space-age cartography, they saw these trails converge like spokes on a wheel, all leading to one specific point in modern-day Oman. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed it, revealing the outlines of massive fortifications beneath the surface. The excavation that followed pulled Ubar back from the realm of myth. They uncovered a large, octagonal fortress with towering walls and 8 great bastions, built directly over a massive limestone cavern. It was a clever and ultimately tragic design. The city drew its water from this underground source, but the very ground beneath it was hollow. Evidence suggests that the weight of the bustling city and its constant traffic likely caused the cavern roof to collapse, catastrophically swallowing the settlement into the earth. The desert did not bury a city punished by the heavens. It preserved the remains of a brilliant logistical hub undone by the geology it depended upon. This discovery teaches a profound lesson about environmental memory. The harshest, most barren landscapes on Earth are not blank pages, they are archives. The shifting sands that erased Ubar from human memory also protected its footprint from later disturbance, sealing it in a dry, sterile tomb. It shows us that the routes of commerce and connection, the very arteries of ancient globalization, once pulsed through places we now see as impassable barriers. A city of trade did not just exist on the edge of the desert. It thrived because of the desert, mastering its challenges to control a treasure that the world desired. So when we look at a map and see only emptiness, we must remember the stories the sand holds. It asks us what other crossroads of civilization are still waiting beneath the dunes, their caravans silent, their markets quiet, holding secrets about how humanity builds networks in the most unlikely of places. From the silent archives of sand, we plunge into a world of weightless stone and whispering silt. The Mediterranean Sea, a cradle of civilization, holds more than sunken ships in its blue depths. For over 1,000 years, it guarded one of its greatest secrets, a legendary port city that served as the grand gateway between two ancient worlds, Greece and Egypt. Historians knew its name from texts, Thonis to the Egyptians, Heracleion to the Greeks, a bustling metropolis mentioned by the great historian Herodotus. It was the mandatory port of entry for all trade from the Greek world, a place where cultures and customs merged before goods ever reached the Nile. Yet, for centuries, its physical location was a complete mystery, lost somewhere along the shifting Egyptian coastline, presumed gone forever beneath the waves or the relentless sediment of the Nile Delta. Then, in the late 1990s, a team led by underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio began a systematic survey in the Bay of Aboukir, near modern Alexandria. Using advanced side-scan sonar and magnetometers, they mapped the seafloor, revealing anomalies that defied nature. What they found, emerging ghost-like from the murk, was nothing short of a submerged museum. Colossal statues of a pharaoh and a queen, each standing over 16 feet tall, lay peacefully on the seabed as if placed there by gentle hands. A massive stone stele, inscribed with a royal decree in both Greek and Egyptian hieroglyphs, stood perfectly preserved. Temples dedicated to the gods Ammon and Heracles held their form, their columns now home to schools of fish. Hundreds of gold coins, delicate jewelry, and ceremonial barges were found resting in the silt, a metropolis frozen in a moment of profound change. The city did not vanish in a single cataclysmic event, but through a slower, more insidious process. Built on the unstable clay of the Nile Delta, the weight of its grand stone buildings, combined with rising sea levels and a series of earthquakes, triggered a phenomenon called soil liquefaction. Essentially, the very ground the city stood on turned from a solid to a liquid state, causing entire districts to sink and slide into the Mediterranean. The water did not violently crash over Heracleion, it quietly swallowed it, preserving its treasures in an anaerobic, timeless environment. This discovery rewrites our understanding of ancient maritime networks. Heracleion was not a minor outpost, it was the vital customs house and religious center that controlled and taxed all Mediterranean trade entering Egypt for centuries. Its submersion is a powerful reminder of the fragile relationship between coastal cities and their environments. These hubs of connection and commerce are often built on dynamic, changing frontiers, making them uniquely vulnerable to geological shifts and climate changes. As we look at Heracleion statues, their faces gazing upward through the water toward a sun they have not seen for a millennium, we are left with a haunting and beautiful question. If a city of such immense importance could be lost to the sea and then found again, what other gateways to forgotten worlds lie silent on the ocean floor, their harbors empty, their market squares visited only by currents, holding stories of connection that once shaped the ancient world? The sea gives up its secrets to patient technology, but some cities were never meant to be found by outsiders at all. High in the Peruvian Andes, where the air grows thin and clouds cling to jagged peaks, lies a testament to intentional seclusion. Machu Picchu is a familiar name today, its image synonymous with ancient wonder, but its modern discovery was a moment of pure, improbable revelation. In 1911, American academic Hiram Bingham, guided by local farmers, pushed through dense cloud forest along the Urubamba River gorge. He was searching for Vilcabamba, the last refuge of the Inca, but what he found instead defied all expectation. Emerging onto a saddle between two soaring mountains, he gazed upon a sight that seemed to defy gravity itself. A silent city of exquisite stonework cascaded down the ridge, its agricultural terraces sculpting the mountainside, its temples and palaces perfectly integrated with the natural rock, all shrouded in mist. This was not a city built for trade or conquest. It was a royal estate, a sanctuary for Inca nobility, a place of ceremony and retreat. Its very location was its greatest defense and its ultimate secret. Perched at an altitude of nearly 8,000 feet, accessible only by narrow mountain trails, it was invisible from below and incredibly difficult to reach. The Inca, master stoneworkers and brilliant engineers, had chosen this remote area not by accident but by design. They shaped the mountain to their will, creating a self-contained world that harmonized with the sacred landscape. This intentional isolation is precisely why it remained lost to the outside world for centuries. Historical research suggests it was constructed in the mid-15th century and was likely abandoned less than 100 years later, perhaps due to the upheaval of the Spanish conquest. Crucially, the Spanish never found it. As the empire collapsed, the trails leading to this mountain refuge grew over. The cloud forest crept back across its plazas, hiding it in a living cloak of moss and orchids. It was not destroyed, it was simply released, forgotten by all but a few local inhabitants who knew of its presence but guarded its solitude. This changes our understanding of what a lost city can be. Machu Picchu was not lost to catastrophe or swallowed by a shifting environment. It was a place that fulfilled its purpose and then was deliberately left behind, allowed to sleep until the modern world, armed with curiosity and local knowledge, stumbled upon its stone dream. Its discovery highlights a profound theme that some of humanity's greatest achievements were created not for public glory, but for private meaning, built in places so remote they became their own perfect preservation. It makes you wonder, in the vast, unmapped ranges of the world, what other sanctuaries of stone still wait in the clouds, their silence undisturbed, their purpose remembered only by the mountains themselves. The sanctuary of Machu Picchu found safety in its height, but other civilizations sought refuge by going in the opposite direction, deep into the earth itself. In the rocky heartland of Cappadocia, Turkey, a man was renovating his home in 1963 when he made a discovery that would rewrite the region's history. Knocking down a wall, he found not more stone but a dark, gaping passageway. Curiosity led him into a tunnel which opened into a room which then led to another and another. He had accidentally uncovered the entrance to Derinkuyu, an entire underground metropolis carved directly into the soft volcanic rock, descending an astonishing 18 levels deep into the darkness. This was not a simple cave or a single shelter. It was a fully functional, self-sufficient city designed to sustain life for extended periods. Engineers of antiquity had thought of everything. Massive circular stone doors weighing up to 1,000 pounds could be rolled across key passageways to seal off entire sections from the outside. Over 50 ventilation shafts, some reaching depths of over 200 feet, provided fresh air to even the lowest chambers. There were spaces for livestock, intricate networks of wine and oil presses, churches with carved altars, communal kitchens, and living quarters for an estimated 20,000 people. Water was supplied by a deep, protected well that tapped into an underground river, ensuring a supply even during the longest sieges. The purpose of this breathtaking feat of engineering was singular: protection. Derinkuyu was part of a vast, interconnected network of subterranean cities in Cappadocia, used over centuries by various groups, including early Christian communities, as a refuge from invading forces sweeping across the surface. When raiders came, the entire population could vanish underground, rolling the great stone doors shut behind them, and live in safety for months. This fundamentally reshapes our idea of what a city is. We envision bustling streets, open plazas, and towers reaching for the sky. Derinkuyu presents the inverse, a city of profound inward focus, where community thrived in the silent, stable embrace of the earth. It represents a brilliant adaptation to persistent threat, not by building higher walls on the surface, but by abandoning the surface altogether. The city's design speaks to a deep understanding of geology, airflow, hydrology, and social organization under extreme duress. It is a monument not to public grandeur, but to collective survival. To walk its corridors today is to feel the weight of that intention, a society that chose the eternal night of the underground over the perilous light of the world above. It forces a question upon us, one about resilience and the lengths to which communities will go to preserve their way of life. If humans could build such intricate worlds beneath their feet, what does that say about the pressures they faced on the surface, and what other hidden layers of history, entire chapters of human endurance, might still be waiting in the dark just behind a forgotten wall? The silence of an underground city is profound, but the Arctic holds a different kind of quiet, one broken by the memory of industry and the slow groan of ice. Far to the north, on the remote archipelago of Svalbard, the concept of a lost city takes on a transient, gritty form. Here, amidst glaciers and polar bears, the remnants of 17th-century whaling stations cling to the frozen shorelines, ghostly echoes of a forgotten global enterprise. These were not permanent metropolises with temples or palaces, but highly organized, seasonal industrial hubs where men from England, the Netherlands, and other European nations waged a brutal campaign against the bowhead whale. They built try-works, massive brick furnaces for boiling whale blubber into precious oil, and rough timber barracks to house their crews during the short, fierce summer. For months, these icy bays would echo with the sounds of a floating factory, the smell of burning blubber hanging thick in the cold air, a stark human imposition on one of the planet's most extreme environments. When the pack ice returned each autumn, the whalers would sail south, leaving their stations to the long polar night. They intended to return the following year, but shifting whale populations, economic changes, and the sheer unforgiving nature of the place meant many of these outposts were simply abandoned, their tools, graves, and ovens slowly buried by snow and preserved in a state of suspended animation by the permafrost. For centuries, these sites slept under ice, perfectly conserved snapshots of a harsh, specialized way of life. Now, a paradoxical threat is bringing them back to light. The warming climate is causing the permafrost to thaw at an alarming rate. As the ground softens, archaeologists are gaining unprecedented access, uncovering perfectly preserved wooden artifacts, leather clothing, and even the remains of meals, offering an incredibly intimate look at this perilous industry. Yet this same thaw is also a race against time, as the exposed materials, once frozen for hundreds of years, begin to rot and disintegrate rapidly when exposed to air and moisture. These whaling stations force us to expand our definition of a lost settlement. They were temporary, yet they were critical nodes in a global economic network, extracting a resource that lit the lamps and lubricated the machines of early modern Europe. Their discovery and impending loss highlight a poignant modern dilemma, where the very process of climate change that reveals our past is also actively erasing it. These silent stations on the edge of the world ask us a difficult question as we watch the ice recede and history both emerge and vanish before our eyes. What responsibilities do we have to the fragile footprints of human endeavor, especially those left in the most vulnerable places on Earth? Stone walls can tell a story of power, but only if we are willing to listen. In the rolling highlands of southern Africa, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe rise from the earth, a breathtaking complex of granite walls, conical towers, and enclosures that speak of a sophisticated and wealthy kingdom. For centuries, these silent structures stood as an enigma to European explorers who arrived in the 19th century. Confronted with such monumental architecture, built entirely without mortar using a masterful dry stone technique. They could not reconcile its grandeur with their own preconceived notions of African history. They refused to believe that indigenous Shona people could have created it. Instead, they invented fanciful origins, attributing the city to biblical figures like the Queen of Sheba, or to Phoenician traders, anyone but the ancestors of the local population. This was not a city lost to time, but a history deliberately obscured by prejudice, its story waiting patiently for a more honest chapter of discovery to begin. The truth, uncovered through rigorous archaeology in the 20th century, is far more impressive than any myth. Great Zimbabwe was the heart of a vast medieval empire that flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries. It was a political and spiritual capital, a center of immense economic power built on the control of gold and ivory trade routes that stretched from the interior to ports on the Indian Ocean coast. The very layout of the city reflects a highly stratified society, with the ruler residing in a hilltop complex overlooking the majestic great enclosure below, a walled space that likely served ceremonial purposes. The scale is staggering, with some walls standing over 30 feet high and running for nearly 800 feet, their curved forms echoing the natural landscape in a display of harmony and control. What makes its location so unexpected, however, is what it lacks. Great Zimbabwe was not built on a major river or a natural harbor. It thrived in an inland region, its power derived not from maritime access, but from something else entirely: astute resource management and diplomatic genius. The kingdom controlled the gold fields of the interior and the trade networks that moved that wealth to the coast. Its leaders mastered the art of diplomacy, building relationships with surrounding communities and distant traders. They cultivated the land, developing advanced agricultural and pastoral systems to support a large urban population. This was a civilization that generated its own centrality, turning the African interior into a crossroads of commerce and culture. The reclaiming of Great Zimbabwe's true narrative is one of the most important corrections in modern historiography. It stands as a permanent rebuttal to colonial narratives that denied African agency and accomplishment. The city was never truly lost. Its people always knew its origins. It was the wider world's understanding that was missing, blinded by bias. This forces a crucial reflection on the nature of discovery itself. How many other magnificent achievements are still waiting not to be found in the ground, but to be rightfully acknowledged in the stories we choose to tell? The stones of Zimbabwe have always spoken. The question was never about the city being lost, but about when we would finally choose to hear its voice. Sometimes a city is not lost to slow abandonment, but sealed away in a single, catastrophic moment. On the sun-drenched island of Santorini, a layer of earth tells a story of sudden, breathtaking finality. Beneath the whitewashed villages and blue-domed churches lies an entire Bronze Age town, known today as Akrotiri. Around the year 1600 before Common Era, the volcano at the heart of the island erupted with a force that reshaped the Mediterranean. The settlement was not consumed by lava, but buried under a deep, protective blanket of volcanic ash and pumice, a fate eerily similar to Pompeii but over 1,000 years earlier. For millennia, it slept in perfect silence, its very existence erased from human memory, until modern excavations began to peel back the layers. What they revealed was not a ruin but a time capsule. Multi-story buildings stood with their walls intact, some reaching 3 stories high, connected by a network of streets and public squares. Inside, the vibrancy of life was preserved in stunning frescoes, paintings on wet plaster that depicted antelopes leaping, fishermen hauling in their catch, and elegant women gathering saffron flowers. The sophistication is staggering, with advanced multi-story plumbing and drainage systems running beneath the streets, a testament to a society that valued both beauty and practical engineering. This was a major outpost of the Minoan civilization, a trading hub intimately connected to the Great Palace of Knossos on Crete. The eruption did more than destroy Akrotiri. It likely triggered tsunamis and climate disruptions that contributed to the decline of Minoan power across the region. Yet, in a paradoxical twist, the same volcanic fury that obliterated the town also conserved it. The ash entombed everything from ceramic pots left in kitchens to wooden furniture casts, freezing a precise snapshot of a thriving community on an ordinary day. There is no evidence of human remains found in the excavated areas, suggesting the inhabitants had enough warning to flee, taking their most precious belongings with them. This detail adds a layer of profound humanity to the tragedy, a story of evacuation rather than instant demise. Akrotiri forces us to confront the dual nature of geological power. A volcano can erase a city from history's active narrative, yet its very ejecta can become the perfect preservative, creating a museum that no human curator could ever design. It offers us an unparalleled window into the daily rhythms, artistic spirit, and technological prowess of a pre-classical world. So we must ask, as we walk the preserved streets of this ash-locked city, what other vibrant chapters of human existence are similarly entombed, not under sand or jungle, but beneath the quiet slopes of other sleeping giants, holding their breath and their secrets for a future ready to listen. The power of a volcano can preserve a city in ash, but the patient sea can build one from coral. In the warm waters of the Pacific, off the island of Pohnpei in Micronesia, a different kind of metropolis rises from a shallow lagoon. This is Nan Madol, a city of over 100 artificial islets, meticulously constructed atop a coral reef. For centuries, it has been called the Venice of the Pacific, a network of canals and colossal stone platforms that form a ceremonial and political capital floating between the ocean and the mangrove forests. To approach it by boat is to witness a scene of surreal grandeur, where human ambition met the relentless rhythm of the tides. The scale of construction here is almost incomprehensible. The islets are built from colossal basalt logs, some weighing many tons, quarried from the opposite side of the main island. These prismatic stones were transported across the water, likely on bamboo rafts, and then stacked in crisscrossing patterns like log cabins to form stable foundations and towering walls, all without a single drop of mortar. The precision and labor involved speak of a society with extraordinary organizational power. This was the seat of the Allure dynasty, a line of rulers who unified Pohnpei for what local histories say was centuries. The city was divided into a ceremonial sector with temples and tombs, and a residential sector for the nobility. The largest structure, a massive enclosure called Nan Dowers, features walls 25 feet high, a fortress of stone meant to inspire awe and signify unshakable authority. Life here was dictated by the water. Canoes were the primary mode of transport along the gridded canals, and the diet was rich with seafood. Yet this aquatic marvel also held a mystery, for the Allures are said to have ruled with increasing strictness, and oral histories tell of a revolt that led to the dynasty's overthrow. Following this change, the complex was gradually abandoned. The canals, without constant maintenance, began to silt up. The mangrove crept inward. The grand city, so deliberately wrested from the sea, was slowly given back to it. For generations, Nan Madol existed in a space between memory and myth for the outside world. Local inhabitants knew of its presence and its stories, speaking of it with a mix of reverence and caution, considering some areas sacred or spiritually charged. These persistent legends are what eventually drew archaeologists to study the site, confirming that the oral histories were anchored in a breathtaking physical reality. The true wonder of Nan Madol is not just its stones but its location. Why build a capital here in this logistically challenging, water-logged setting? The answer may lie in the very nature of power. By constructing their center on an artificial landscape, the Allure rulers physically and symbolically set themselves apart from the common people on the main island. It was a display of control over both nature and society, a statement that their authority was as fundamental and immovable as these basalt foundations rising from the reef. The city was a theater of power, and the lagoon was its stage. Today, as the roots of mangroves slowly pry apart the ancient stonework, Madol poses a haunting question about legacy. It shows us that human societies can achieve the seemingly impossible, bending even a marine environment to their will. But it also whispers that all monuments, no matter how grand, must eventually negotiate a truce with the natural world they sought to conquer. The coral foundations of Madol show a society mastering the sea, but to find the roots of civilization in the Americas, we must travel to a desert valley where the first stones were laid before the pyramids of Egypt were even conceived. In the arid Soup Valley of Peru, a place of stark brown hills and relentless sun, the ancient city of Caral rises from the dust. For decades, the mounds here were mistaken for natural hills, curious features in a landscape that seemed to hold only sand and silence. It was not until the late 1990s that archaeologists, led by Ruth Shady, began to excavate with a new understanding. They peeled back the layers of wind-blown soil to reveal something astonishing: a meticulously planned urban center with 6 large pyramidal structures, sunken circular plazas, residential complexes, and a sophisticated irrigation system, all carbon dated to around 2600 before Common Era. This makes Caral one of the oldest known cities in the entire world, a thriving metropolis contemporary with the great civilizations of Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, yet born in complete isolation on the other side of the globe. Walking through Caral today, you are not just exploring ruins, you are stepping into the blueprint of Andean civilization. The city's design is a masterclass in social organization and spiritual life. The central focus is the Great Pyramid, a terraced monument over 100 feet high, flanked by other temple mounds and amphitheater-like plazas. These were not fortifications, but spaces for ceremony and community gathering. Perhaps the most evocative discoveries were not tools of war, but instruments of culture, beautifully crafted flutes made from condor and pelican bones, and cornets of deer and llama bones. These finds paint a picture of a society that valued music, ritual, and public celebration, a peaceful civilization that flourished for nearly 1,000 years without any evidence of warfare or defensive walls. Their power came from trade and religion, not conquest. Caral was the heart of a network of settlements throughout the valley, connected by a shared culture and a complex economy that exchanged agricultural goods from the irrigated fields with marine resources from the distant coast. The significance of Caral cannot be overstated. For generations, the narrative of civilization's dawn was centered firmly in the Old World, in the Fertile Crescent and the Nile Valley. Caral shatters that singular focus. It proves conclusively that the human impulse to build complex urban societies emerged independently and simultaneously in multiple cradles around the world. The people of the Soup Valley looked at a harsh desert landscape and saw not a barrier but a canvas. They diverted river water through canals to create fertile farmland. They organized thousands of workers to move stones and erect monuments that aligned with the stars, and they forged a social contract that sustained them for centuries. This city was not lost to invasion or cataclysm, but likely to environmental shifts that gradually made its home unsustainable, leading its people to disperse and carry its cultural legacy into the future, a legacy that would eventually influence the civilizations that followed, including the Inca, thousands of years later. Caral forces a profound recalibration of history. It asks us to look at the empty, quiet places on the map with new eyes, to understand that the first chapters of the human story were not written in one book, but in many, and that some of the oldest and most important volumes have been sitting on the shelf, patiently waiting for us to finally read them. The silent stones of Caral speak of a civilization's dawn, but other cities were born from the constant motion of the world. Far to the east, in the heart of one of Earth's most forbidding deserts, lies a ghost of commerce and connection. The ruins of Nia rest in the Taklamakan Desert of western China, a place whose very name translates to place of no return. This was not a cradle of indigenous culture, but a vital pulse point on the greatest economic network of the ancient world, the Silk Road. For centuries, caravans laden with silk, spices, and ideas snaked through the treacherous dunes, relying on a fragile chain of oasis towns like Nia for survival. It was a lush, green haven where travelers could find water, food, and respite before braving the next deadly stretch of sand. The town thrived as a cultural melting pot, a place where Chinese, Indian, Tibetan, and Central Asian influences met and merged under the relentless sun. Then it vanished, leaving behind a riddle of sand and silence for over 1,000 years. Its rediscovery reads like a page from an adventure novel. In the early 20th century, Hungarian-British explorer and archaeologist Aurel Stein, following fragmentary clues from ancient texts, ventured into the Taklamakan. What he found was not a city buried under a single cataclysm, but one being slowly unveiled and then reclaimed by the desert's wandering dunes. The arid climate had performed a miracle of preservation. He uncovered wooden dwellings with their posts and lintels still standing, as if the owners had just stepped away. Inside, he discovered hundreds of wooden tablets inscribed in the Kharosthi script, detailing the mundane yet profound details of daily life, legal contracts, administrative orders, and personal letters. Exquisitely preserved textiles, delicate carvings, and even ancient tools lay where they were last placed, offering an intimate, frozen moment from the first centuries of the Common Era. The story of Nia's end is not one of war or sudden disaster, but of a slow, inexorable change in the very geography that gave it life. The Taklamakan is a sea of shifting sand dunes, and the rivers that fed the oasis gradually changed their course or dried up, starved by climatic shifts or the silting of their channels. As the water retreated, so did the greenery, and the desert advanced. At the same time, the political and economic landscapes were transforming. New trade routes opened, safer or more profitable paths that bypassed this once crucial stop. The caravans simply stopped coming. Without the lifeblood of commerce and the essential resource of water, Nia was gradually abandoned, its buildings left to the patient, encroaching sands. This makes Nia a profound lesson in transience. It was a city that existed solely because of a line on a map, a node in a vast, interconnected network. Its prosperity was entirely borrowed from the flow of goods and people across continents. When that flow was rerouted by the whims of nature or the calculations of merchants, its reason for being evaporated. The sand that buried it also protected its memory, creating a perfect snapshot of Silk Road life. Today, the ruins stand as a silent witness to the ephemeral nature of human centers built on trade. They ask us to consider the modern parallels, the bustling ports, airports, and digital hubs that define our global economy. Nia reminds us that the routes of connection are alive, they shift and change, and the cities that depend on them must adapt or face becoming whispers in the wind, their stories waiting for an explorer's hand to brush away the dust. The shifting sands of the Taklamakan preserved a trading post, but on a wind-swept Scottish coast they concealed a home. In the Orkney Islands, the North Sea's fury is a constant companion, its storms sculpting the coastline over millennia. One such violent gale in 1850 tore at the dunes along the Bay of Skale, stripping away the grassy cover to reveal something extraordinary, the jagged edges of ancient stone walls. What emerged from that erosion was Skara, Brae, a Neolithic village so perfectly preserved it feels as though its inhabitants might return at any moment. Here, time had not created ruins, but a snapshot, a series of stone-built homes buried under the very earth and midden that had protected them for over 5,000 years. Walking into one of these houses is to step directly into the distant past. The walls are intact, the stone doorways still have their sliding slabs for privacy, and the central hearth sit cold but ready. Most remarkably, the furniture is still in place, carved directly from the living stone, dressers for display, box beds lined with heather, and storage compartments built into the walls. This is not a monument to kings or gods, but a testament to daily life, to communal comfort in a harsh environment. The village layout reveals a close-knit society, with homes connected by covered, low passageways, suggesting a community that relied on one another against the island's biting winds and long winters. Their survival depended on the sea and the land, with evidence showing they farmed cattle and sheep, fished and gathered shellfish, crafting tools from bone and stone. The coastal location that sustained them also became their city's guardian. Gradually, a combination of natural sand drift and the buildup of domestic refuse, a material called midden, gently engulfed the settlement. This was not a sudden burial, but a slow, patient embrace by the elements. The village was not destroyed, it was simply sealed, its organic materials like wood, rope, and even fabric preserved in the anaerobic, alkaline conditions of the midden. For 50 centuries it slept, a complete chapter of human history hidden just beneath the sheep-grazed turf. This slow burial and sudden revelation forces us to expand our idea of what constitutes a lost settlement. Skara Brae was not a grand capital, but a thriving, sophisticated village, a communal hub for its region. Its loss was not due to war or migration, but to the simple, relentless processes of nature, a gradual submersion under sand and time. Its rediscovery was equally accidental, a gift from a storm, reminding us that the past often lies just beneath our feet, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered. It represents a different kind of loss, one of quiet obscurity rather than dramatic collapse. The village story asks a humbling question: how many other early communities, the very foundations of our social structures, are still resting beneath similar blankets of earth, their stories complete, their hearths cold, simply waiting for the wind to change direction and reveal them once more? A city does not always need walls of stone when it has a cliff face for a fortress. Carved into the vast sandstone alcoves of what is now southwestern Colorado, the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde represent one of the most dramatic architectural adaptations in human history. For over 700 years, the ancestral Pueblones thrived on the mesa tops, farming the fertile soils and building communities of stone. Then, around the 13th century, they began a remarkable shift in their way of life. They moved their entire world off the open plateaus and into the sheer, sheltered cliffs below, constructing intricate multi-story villages within the natural recesses of the canyon walls. Places like Cliff Palace, with over 150 rooms and 23 ceremonial kivas, are not mere shelters. They are vertical neighborhoods of astonishing complexity, built with hand-shaped sandstone blocks and wooden beams hauled from the mesa top, connected by a network of ladders and narrow footpaths that scaled the rock face. Living here meant a daily life of careful climbs and breathtaking views, a community literally woven into the fabric of the landscape itself. Yet by the end of the 1300s, these vibrant dwellings fell silent. The ancestral Pueblones departed, leaving behind pottery, tools, and the echoing spaces of their homes. For centuries, the canyons held their secret, known only to the elements and the descendants who carried their stories elsewhere. The modern discovery came not from archaeologists but from ranchers. In 1888, while searching for stray cattle during a snowstorm, Richard Wetherill and his brother-in-law Charles Mason were led by the tracks to the edge of a canyon. Peering through the falling snow across the vast gorge, they saw the outlines of buildings nestled in a giant alcove on the opposite wall. They had found Cliff Palace, a city hidden in plain sight, yet perfectly concealed by its remote, elevated placement. This accidental revelation sparked a wave of archaeological interest that continues to this day, seeking to understand not just how they built this city, but why they left it. The departure was not a sudden evacuation, but a gradual migration over generations. Research points to a convergence of challenges, including a prolonged period of drought that strained agricultural resources on the Mesa tops. This environmental pressure likely interacted with social factors, perhaps resource scarcity, leading to difficult decisions for a growing population. The cliff dwellings themselves, while defensive in their inaccessible locations, may have also become less sustainable as the climate shifted and community needs changed. Their exodus was not an ending, but a relocation, a movement south to areas like New Mexico and Arizona, where their cultural traditions continued and evolved into the modern Pueblo communities. This illustrates a profound truth about lost cities. Mesa Verde was not lost to a single catastrophe, but to a deliberate, gradual migration. Its architectural ingenuity was preserved precisely because of its seclusion, protected from the elements and later disturbance by the very remoteness that made it a home. The silence that fell over Cliff Palace was not one of tragedy, but of transition. It asks us to reconsider what we mean by abandonment. Sometimes, a city is not left behind because it failed, but because its people made a collective choice to move toward a new future, leaving a masterpiece of adaptation as a monument to their resilience and their deep connection to a demanding, beautiful land. Heracleion was not alone in its watery fate. Just a short distance along that same submerged coastline, its sister city slept in the silt. Canopus, a name whispered in ancient texts alongside its more famous twin, was known not just as a port, but as a place of vibrant festivals and profound piety, a city with a reputation for celebration and spiritual devotion. For centuries, its exact location was as much a mystery as Heracleion's, another piece of the vanished Egyptian coastline that seemed lost to the Mediterranean's embrace. The same team that found Heracleion extended their sonar surveys, their instruments pinging through the murky waters of Akrotiri Bay, and the seabed began to reveal another sprawling urban landscape. Canopus emerged from the shadows, a vast complex of temples, harbors, and residential districts, its foundations traced in the sand like a ghostly blueprint. The discoveries here were complementary, filling in the broader picture of a thriving, interconnected port region. Where Heracleion's inscriptions spoke of trade and taxation, Canopus yielded evidence of its famous temples dedicated to the gods Serapis and Osiris, magnets for pilgrims and seekers of healing. The artifacts told a story of a city that balanced commerce with celebration, where the solemnity of religious ritual met the lively energy of a festival town. Together, these twin cities form a submerged map of a lost world. They were not isolated outposts, but key nodes in a dense network of settlements that lined the now vanished branches of the Nile Delta. Their simultaneous discovery and study allow archaeologists to chart a coastline that has dramatically retreated, showing how these urban centers were positioned to control the vital river mouths where fresh water met the salt sea, the perfect location for managing the flow of goods and people. This clustering effect is crucial to understanding their loss. The geological instability that doomed Heracleion, the liquefaction of the delta clay, did not strike a single city. It transformed an entire region. As the ground softened and sea levels crept upward, a whole district of human achievement gradually sank beneath the waves, a cluster of communities vanishing together in a slow-motion geological event. Their stories are inextricably linked, one city's economic records making sense of the other's religious artifacts, their combined ruins sketching the outline of a bustling maritime province that simply slipped off the map. This changes the scale of the mystery. We are not looking for isolated pearls of civilization lost one by one. but sometimes for entire necklaces, their strands broken and scattered across time. The rediscovery of Canopus alongside Heracleion is a powerful reminder that history often hides in connected fragments. Modern technology, from sonar to satellite, does not just find single cities, it begins to reassemble lost landscapes, stitching the silent stones of one site to the faded inscriptions of another until a complete chapter, long thought erased, floats back into view. It prompts a humbling thought that beneath the familiar blue of a sea or the featureless green of a plain, entire sister cities might still lie in wait, their shared story paused, waiting for the moment when our curiosity finally learns how to listen for the echo of both. The final frontier of our journey is not a jungle or a desert, but a land of wind and ice at the very end of the world. Patagonia, the vast southern region of South America, is a landscape of staggering beauty and profound isolation, where glaciers carve through mountains and the wind howls across empty steppes. Here, the legends are as sparse and haunting as the terrain itself. For centuries, European explorers whispered of a mythical place called the City of the Caesars, a lost settlement of untold wealth and splendor, built with silver and gold, hidden somewhere in the labyrinth of fjords and frozen peaks. It was a siren song that drew expeditions into the unforgiving cold, a dream of riches that mirrored El Dorado but was cloaked in southern mist. Yet, unlike the stone metropolises we have explored, Patagonia's lost settlements have proven to be the most elusive of all. No grand stone pyramids or sunken temples have emerged from its glaciers. Instead, the evidence is subtle, a whisper in the archaeological record. Recent research has uncovered something perhaps more meaningful than a city of silver, scattered stone tools, remnants of ancient hearths, and the faint outlines of temporary shelters. These are not the marks of a grand empire, but of resilient, mobile communities who learn to thrive in one of the planet's most challenging environments. They hint at social networks and survival strategies we are only beginning to understand, groups who may have moved with the seasons, leaving behind only the lightest footprint on the hard land. This changes the very definition of what we are searching for. The true lost city of Patagonia may not be a place of permanent stone, but a pattern of life, a seasonal gathering of people whose home was the vastness itself. The harsh climate that preserved these faint clues also actively works against discovery, with ice advancing and retreating, burying and revealing sites in a slow, unpredictable rhythm. The mythical city of the Caesars may never be found because it likely never existed as the legends described. Yet the pursuit of it and the real fragments we do uncover lead us to a profound and humbling realization. Some chapters of the human story are written not in stone but in wind. They are recorded in ephemeral ways, in oral traditions that fade and in seasonal campsites that leave only the barest trace. These remote corners of the world remind us that not every lost city will be revealed in full. Some will remain as fragments, as questions without complete answers, existing in the liminal space between myth and memory. And that is perhaps the most important lesson of all. The quest to find these places, driven by curiosity and wonder, is itself a testament to our desire to connect with every part of our shared past. It teaches us humility before the vast unknowns of history, and it ensures that we keep looking, keep questioning, and keep listening for the echoes of those who came before, no matter how faint they may be. These silent echoes across continents are not random whispers. They form a powerful, unified story about the human spirit. Our journey through jungles, deserts, and frozen coasts reveals a truth far more valuable than any single artifact. Human civilization is defined by an astonishing capacity for resilience and reinvention. From the cliffside ingenuity of Mesa, Verde, to the subterranean fortress of Derinkuyu, from the aquatic marvel of Madol to the sunken ports of Heracleion, each city stands as a testament to societies that looked at impossible environments and saw not barriers but opportunities. They mastered the sand, the sea, the rock, and the ice, building communities in places we once dismissed as empty or uninhabitable. Every discovery does more than fill a blank space on a historical map. It shatters our assumptions. It forces us to rewrite the narratives we tell about cultural evolution, reminding us that progress is not a single, linear path, but a vast, branching tree of innovation. These cities also hold urgent lessons about our relationship with the planet. They show us societies that flourished for centuries in balance with their surroundings, and they document the profound consequences when that balance was disrupted, whether by a shifting river, a changing climate, or the slow subsidence of the very ground beneath their feet. Their stories are not just about the past, they are mirrors for our present and cautionary tales for our future. Yet for every mystery solved, a dozen new questions arise. Who were the people of Caral, and what songs did their flutes play? What final ceremony was held in the great enclosure of Zimbabwe before the silence fell? The pursuit of these answers is accelerating, driven by technologies that act as extensions of our curiosity. LiDAR strips away the forest canopy, sonar maps the ocean floor, and satellites detect the faintest traces of ancient footpaths from space. We are living in a golden age of discovery where lost cities are being found not by chance, but by a deliberate global effort to listen to the land. This means the map of human history is being redrawn in real time. The chapters we thought were complete are gaining new paragraphs, and entirely new volumes are waiting to be opened. So let this exploration be a beginning, not an end. Let it remind you that wonder is a compass, and curiosity is the most powerful tool we have. The world is still full of secrets, and the next great lost city is not waiting in some fantastical, unreachable realm. It is resting quietly in a place we have overlooked, a place where no one has yet thought to look. Which of these rediscovered worlds speaks most deeply to you? Share your thoughts and join us as we continue to uncover the hidden stories that connect us all.